My sister ran away with her boyfriend years ago, leaving me alone to take care of our grandparents. When she recently returned for the inheritance, she discovered that I am now in charge of distributing it. The situation, in brief, is this: my sister showed up at my door a few hours ago, out of nowhere, after being who knows where for the last 5 years. She claimed she wanted to repair the rift that had supposedly grown between us. I'm 29 years old and a man, and I rejected her offer. She insisted, saying she had come to make peace and apologize for the problems she caused, specifically mentioning the decisions she made when she was younger. I haven't seen this woman in 5 years and haven't spoken to her in almost a decade, all because of choices she made without considering anyone else's opinion. The rift she's talking about may as well be imaginary, because I have no interest in mending it. I told her as much before slamming the door in her face. My suspicion is that her sudden reappearance has little to do with apologies or peace. I suspect she's here because our grandfather recently passed away and joined our grandmother in the afterlife, and now she's hoping for a share of the inheritance. My feelings aside, I'd like to explain my perspective as clearly as possible to receive objective feedback. While I don't regret a single word I said to her, I can't help but wonder what my grandparents would think of how I treated her. Maybe my emotions got the better of me, and I didn't act as maturely as I should have. With my fiancé out of town, I don't have anyone close to confide in who truly understands the strained relationship I've had with my sister. I've read many stories about similar family situations, so I thought sharing mine here might offer some perspective. Writing it down may at least help me process it. Even if I gain nothing else, maybe I can get some clarity. This story begins over 2 decades ago in 1997, when my parents died in a car accident. It was determined that they both passed away instantly, so I find some comfort in knowing they didn't suffer. If you've done the math, you'll realize I was only 3 years old at the time, while my sister was 5. Fortunately, we had a close-knit extended family, and our paternal grandparents immediately took us in. My grandfather retired early to care for us full-time. Both grandparents were surgeons, so we had a very comfortable childhood, even though they were over 60. Despite their age, they were active and deeply involved in our lives. My grandmother continued working until my second year of high school, but she attended every event she could. My grandfather, who had more free time, was always there for us. He poured all his dedication and motivation from his surgical career into our family. He organized barbecues, birthday parties, and taught all the grandchildren to ride bikes and tie knots. He loved us unconditionally, and his wealth only allowed him to show his love in even more ways. Despite all of this, he and my grandmother instilled a deep sense of gratitude in me. I never took anything for granted. My sister, however, had a different view. Let's call her Estella, a fake name, of course, for privacy. She always believed everything was owed to her simply because she lost her parents at such a young age. She felt the world had a duty to compensate her, and that our grandparents were the universe's way of doing so. There was no gratitude or recognition of how lucky we were, given our circumstances. While I acknowledged how fortunate we were, Estella acted as if all of it was her birthright. She would go through cycles of inappropriate behavior, crossing the line repeatedly, only to play the victim when confronted. Our grandparents, especially our grandmother, would then bail her out. To outsiders, she appeared to be the perfect girl, but I saw how she truly acted behind closed doors. Over time, I realized her behavior wasn't normal or acceptable. Each time I tried to intervene, she became hostile, and my grandparents would caution me not to ruin my relationship with her, as she was my closest family member. When our grandmother retired, her health began to decline. While my grandfather, some relatives, and I took care of her, Estella spent less and less time at home, choosing to attend university across the country, with our grandparents footing the bill, of course. She met a boyfriend there, and they became serious enough that she spent every break with him, never once visiting her sick grandmother. She only returned for Grandma's funeral 4 years later. It's been 5 years since then, and a month ago, Grandpa joined Grandma in the afterlife. The past few years have been hard, and the last few weeks have been especially painful. I find some peace in believing he's reunited with the love of his life, or at least, I like to think of it that way. Estella didn't attend Grandpa's funeral. To be fair, no one had been in contact with her since Grandma's funeral, so she may not have known about it. Yet she clearly heard about Grandpa's passing somehow, because, as I mentioned, she showed up at my door. She claimed she wanted to make amends, that she regretted her actions, and that she wanted her little brother back. I didn't buy it. I suspect she's here because she found out about Grandpa's death and hopes there's some inheritance waiting for her. I didn't say this outright, but I made it clear I had no interest in reconnecting or listening to her. I told her to leave, shut the door, locked it, and put on my headphones to avoid hearing her knock. I don't regret rejecting her, but thinking about Grandpa makes me wonder what he'd think of how I reacted. That's why I'm here. Was my response justified, Or am I just fooling myself into thinking I acted responsibly while behaving like a child? I want you to be blunt with me. I'll accept the truth, whatever it is. Update. I've read all the comments on my original post, as well as the direct messages people sent, which I honestly didn't expect but truly appreciate. I'm grateful for everyone who took the time to respond, as it's given me a lot to consider, and I've been reflecting on all of it. Since then, I've wanted to provide more information, as many were curious about why Estella didn't attend the funeral, the status of the inheritance, and how she knew where to find me. I'll start with the easiest question, how she knew my location. I'm currently living in the house where my sister and I grew up, our grandparents' house. The reason is that my fiancé is currently abroad due to family matters on his side, and I've needed to take care of various things around the house. I thought it would be a good opportunity to organize things here during my free time rather than trying to manage it while living at my own place. The inheritance is a bit more complicated to explain. My grandparents had several assets and a considerable amount of money in the bank. When my grandmother passed, all her assets went to my grandfather. Now, most of my grandfather's assets have been inherited by me, with the understanding that I'll fulfill his last wishes, creating education funds for grandchildren who aren't yet school-aged, among other things he wanted to accomplish. His 2 classic cars went to his eldest son, and the beach house went to his youngest son. While this may seem uneven, it was part of an agreement years ago to balance things out. A sum of money was also allocated to my eldest uncle, and I'm responsible for facilitating this as the official heir. My family decided to trust me to carry out my grandfather's wishes. As for Estella and why she wasn't at the funeral, no one contacted her. I don't have her number, and as far as I know, no one else in the extended family does either, except for an aunt who has her on an old Facebook account that Estella hasn't updated in years. Estella found out about my grandfather's death through this aunt, who posted a tribute message a couple of weeks after he passed away. Apparently, that post made Estella think because she immediately booked a flight here to try to make amends. I know this because she returned 2 days ago, despite my unwelcoming response, begging for a chance to reconcile. After reading numerous comments and messages urging me to consider what my grandparents would want, I decided to listen a little more this time. However, my conclusion remained the same. I know who she truly is, and I told her so. She insisted, launching into a sad story about how her boyfriend left her, how she now understands the importance of family more than ever, and how losing our grandfather made her realize the fragility of life. She claimed she wanted to take advantage of the time she has left to reconcile with me. Eventually, after I repeatedly asked her to leave, she did, though I doubt she'll let it go without a fight. I imagine she'll start contacting our aunt. Update 2. It's me again with another update, and I'm frustrated. It's been 4 days since my last update, and I've spent almost all of that time at work or at home organizing my grandfather's belongings. It seems I'm not the only one who's been busy because my cousin just messaged me about a cousin's dinner they're organizing to celebrate Estella's return. I don't know what kind of charm she used in just 4 days to make them overlook the fact that we hadn't seen or heard from her in 5 years, but somehow, she has this ability to manipulate people as she pleases. According to my cousin, Estella contacted our aunt on Facebook, got some numbers, and organized a meeting. She's apparently sold them her entire story about how her boyfriend left her, the family is ephemeral, and now they're all willing to meet her for dinner. I asked my cousin how they could be so willing to ignore the fact that she's been absent for half a decade. Apparently, they want to move past that and give her a chance, viewing our grandfather's passing as an opportunity to win back a family member. I told them I'd let them know if I'd attend, but honestly, I have no intention of going. I'm not interested in sitting there, watching her spin tales of regret and hardship, wrapping everyone up in her charm again. Still, I called my cousin to express my concerns about Estella's sudden return. My cousin acknowledged that it's entirely possible she has ulterior motives, but he also pointed out that our grandparents always taught us to assume the best in people, especially family. Apparently, Estella seemed very sincere when she spoke to him, and they're willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to be the one accusing her or rallying everyone against her, that would make me just as manipulative as I believe she is. But it bothers me that she can come back after 5 years of silence, after nearly a decade of abandoning her younger brother to our grandparents in their old age. I feel torn, like my options are either to ignore it or risk making things worse. This update is far less calm than the previous one. Where I was frustrated before, I'm now furious, and convinced I was 100% right about Estella's motives. Here's what happened. Despite my reservations, my cousins went ahead with the cousins' dinner. That dinner led to brunch with the aunts the next day, a bowling outing with the cousins, and then another dinner, this time with nearly the entire extended family in the area. I didn't attend any of these gatherings, and maybe that was my mistake, letting it all unfold behind my back while I tried to pretend it wasn't happening. It's been exactly a week since my last update, which feels like a short time, but apparently, it's been enough for Estella to sink her claws into the family. Yesterday, we had a family meeting to review the will, go over all the details, and spend time together, something we've done quite regularly since my grandfather passed. Clearly, someone passed this information on to Estella because, when I arrived at my uncle's house, she was there. They immediately informed me that, as family, Estella had a right to attend family gatherings and, most importantly, be part of the inheritance discussions. They said she had a hard time in the past 5 years, especially with her boyfriend, whom she planned to marry, leaving her unexpectedly. They believed we should support her. I think I lost control at that moment because, when I regained awareness, I was in the middle of an argument about how she was manipulating everyone to feel guilty and get exactly what she wanted. I told them she only returned to claim a share of an inheritance she had no right to after abandoning her grandfather years ago. My uncle tried to calm me down, but Estella had the audacity to interrupt, claiming she'd been trying to contact and apologize to me for 2 weeks. She said I was rejecting her despite her sincere efforts because I was greedy and wanted to keep the inheritance for myself. Then she burst into tears, ran out to calm down, and left me standing there as the family's villain. Any attempt I made afterward to explain her past actions and my understanding of her motives was dismissed. They insisted that they genuinely believed she had changed, that she wasn't trying to deceive them, and that she'd been doing everything possible to repair her relationships with everyone in recent weeks while I'd been hiding in my grandfather's house. They told me it would be best if I left for now and that we could continue the meeting after I had a chance to reflect. I still don't know what I'm going to do. A lot has happened since my last update, and my fiancé returned just in time to help with some impressive investigative skills. Normally, they would make me a little nervous, but in this case, they were incredibly useful. The big discovery: Estella has been lying about her sentimental status. She is still very involved with her boyfriend, the same boyfriend who supposedly left her, and she has been using this story to arouse our family's compassion. Oh, poor Estella, abandoned by the love of her life, except that, based on an Instagram account we just found, they are definitely still together. Finding out he was lying was gratifying, but it wasn't what finally exposed her. That credit goes to my cousin's cat. Yes, you read that right, the cat. This is what happened the night of the family reunion. After everyone left, my cousin realized his cat was missing. He searched the entire house and assumed it must have escaped while someone was leaving, so he checked the images from his door camera. He actually found the cat, but he also discovered something much more interesting. After I left, Estella is seen returning to the house. She receives a phone call, and from the way she greets the caller and addresses him by name, it's clear she's talking to her boyfriend. She actually discusses her plan to scam our family, all in front of a camera. The audio wasn't perfect, but we heard enough. She said, "I'm pretty sure they'll give me whatever you ask for, and I still look sad enough. As soon as they sign for the house, I'll sell it to the first buyer and be back with you, with your money, love." Then, she told him how much longer she thought it would take to complete her plan. All the suspicions and accusations we had were confirmed in less than 5 minutes of recording. The best part was seeing her hang up, put on her sad face again, and walk back into the house as if nothing had happened. My cousin called me immediately after watching the recording. He wasn't sure how to break the news to the rest of the family, but he knew I would know what to do. So, I took the recording he sent me, along with screenshots from her boyfriend's Instagram account, and brought them to the family reunion planned for the weekend, a week after the last failed reunion. I wish you could have seen everyone's faces when they saw the recording. Estella's defense crumbled the moment she tried to cry her way out of it, and as a last resort, she burst into tears again. I truly enjoyed the moment of saying goodbye to her when our aunt told her, "It is best that you leave." My family apologized to me, and we'll probably have more conversations about all this, but for now, things are starting to get better. I can only hope I never have to deal with Estella again. To everyone who made it this far, and to those who commented and offered advice over the last few weeks, thank you. I am very grateful. This has been crazy for me, but finally, the update is finished. Somehow, after all this time, we've returned to the beginning. It's been 3 months since everything came to light, and since my last update. In that time, Estella has practically exiled herself somewhere far away from us, and she's been with her boyfriend, completely disconnected from the family. Life has been peaceful these last few months. I finally finished organizing everything in my grandparents' house, and the rest of the family came together to distribute the belongings fairly and donate what was left. Work is going well, my relationship is great, and we'll soon start formally planning the wedding. But of course, Estella loves her unannounced appearances. 2 days ago, just like in my original post, someone knocked on my grandparents' door while my cousins and I were finishing one last cleaning as we decided what to do with the property. I was alone again, like at the beginning, and for a change, there was Estella at the door. This time, she and her boyfriend had really broken up. According to her, he left her because she came back empty-handed, without the money they had planned to get. She told me she has no one else to turn to and regrets everything that happened. She wants to make things right and come back home. I don't know why, but it sounds like I've heard it all before, probably because it's what she said before, only with a new layer of poor me for extra drama. I honestly don't believe her. Her now ex-boyfriend still has his public Instagram, which suggests they've broken up, but who knows? All I know is that this time, I slammed the door in her face. I told her I wanted nothing to do with her, that she couldn't run to the family to turn them against me this time, and that no one was going to fall for her lies or support her, no matter how much she cried, complained, or tried to manipulate. This is over. Update. 3 weeks ago, I finally married my wife in a beautiful, intimate wedding without any unpleasant surprises, which was a great relief. From the beginning, my wife and I decided that this event would be only for people who have truly been with us and who represent the best of our family and friends. It wasn't going to be a huge wedding with an endless guest list, but a family-centered celebration. So, Estella, my sister, was not invited. My response was clear: she was not welcome at the wedding. It was a celebration for family members, but that didn't stop her from going to other family members to ask them to help her get an invitation. The only problem for her was that, after all her lies, no one took her side. Well, maybe a distant relative who sometimes forgets things, so she forgot all that had happened with my sister. Still, after a while, even she forgot that my sister had asked her to intervene. So, this relative ended up enjoying the wedding without even a thought of Estella. Estella had one last attempt to get an invitation, repair the relationship with the family, and somehow get a share of the inheritance, but that plan had too many moving parts and failed miserably. She even tried reaching me through my wife, who, thankfully, remained loyal to the family she was joining instead of someone who had hurt us. My wife knows every detail of what Estella did, not only with my grandparents but also with me. She has always supported me through this drama and prefers truth and honesty over manipulation. When my wife received Estella's call, her response was exactly what I expected. She told her directly that there was absolutely nothing she could do to help. In other words, she cut her short without a shred of hope that any manipulation would work. Estella tried her usual mix of pity and promises of change, but my wife didn't give an inch. When she saw the call wasn't going anywhere, Estella, in a last-ditch attempt, switched to insults, thinking she might provoke some reaction to twist the situation in her favor. But my wife simply hung up. This was the last time she tried to reach out. Knowing that my wife put her in her place was incredible. Estella found herself facing a wall, and her tactics that once worked with some family members now had zero impact. I think this was the final signal to Estella that she no longer has a place in our lives, and that there's no loophole she can use to sneak in. So, that's all for Estella. She may try many things, but she will never get a part of the inheritance because she gave up on our family the day she walked out on our grandparents.